Hey, welcome CS120 computer literacy people out there. A little bit on what's the internet and how it works. There we go. So we have an assignment here called the internet. And in this assignment, we're going to create a Google Doc that's going to be in your CS120 research folder. So you can go in there soon and make a new file. You can call it the internet. In there, you're going to do a few things. You're going to look up what does the internet really mean and write a paragraph or so summarizing that. What does the web mean? Paragraph summarizing that. The internet is different from the web, and that's an important distinction that's part of this class. TCPIP, a pair of protocols that make interactions between computers on the internet possible. HTTP, the protocol of the web. DNS, domain name system. It's a way of helping computers interact with each other. It's an addressing system, kind of like the US Post Service helps get mail from place to place. That and TCP/IP work together. IP addresses related to both TCP/IP, HTTP, and DNS. The idea of a domain name and a URL. And we've talked about URLs and domain names before in the beginning of the course. So other things you're going to do is you're going to do some IP address or DNS lookups. And I'm going to do a few of those right now. Here's a site you can use. But if you just search IP address, IP lookup, my IP address, things like that, you'll find lots of cool stuff. And then finally, there'll be you're going to find an article on a recent cyber attack and cite that article and write about it. So here's an example citation down here. And then at the end, you're going to put on your portfolio page in WordPress, you're going to put a link to this Google Doc that you created. And then you're going to submit information about your portfolio page and a link to your file and your research at the end. So let's start taking a look at that. So I started my internet document here. So I gave it a title that appears here and here. I have a section for my definitions. I have another section for my IP address stuff, and I have another section for my cyber attack review for an article there. So I looked up one article already about DNS, and there's lots of articles out there if you search for it. When you do search for these abbreviations, make sure you find the one that's related to computer stuff. I'm sure there's other DNS acronyms out there, so be careful about that. And as a footnote, you'll cite your sources for each of these. And so down here, you'll see that I have from PC Magazine, their encyclopedia page, they had a definition of DNS, and I have a link to that right here, so anybody can go check out the article that I found. If you're unsure how to do a citation, and I don't do them every day, so every once in a while I forget the order of the information. Important links, two things. One is you have a general page about doing citations, another one about doing electronic sources, MLA style. And so they give a bunch of different examples down here of what they could look like, depending on whether it's a web page, an image, an article from a web magazine, scholarly article, blah, 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 and so on. Another one is the citation generator, which is pretty nice, where you feed it a website and then it tries to help you build the source. So for example, I could give it the address of this page I found information on, and I would plug in that URL, and then I would go follow their steps. It's like a 4-step process, and then they feed you what the citation should look like at the end. So I've demoed that before in a video, so please give that a try. So all your sources need to be cited. So each of these you're not going to know about off the top of your head, so you're going to have to look them up. Feel free to use Wikipedia, but you need to have sources besides Wikipedia here. That's very important. All right, so let's take a look at the idea of TCP/IP and DNS. So every domain name like bluecc.edu has associated with it an address. This address is a decimal/hexadecimal address. Each number between the dots ranges from 0 to 255. So I can click this link and that'll take me to bluecc.edu, which you've all been to before. Similarly, I could click this address right here. And if you notice when you point to these, at the bottom of your screen, it'll say what address you pointed to. So it's saying I'm pointing to bluecc.edu. When I point to this link, it says that's going to a website called 38.106.1.5.107. If I click that, it'll first start off with that number, but then the DNS registry system and interaction with the website I contacted rewrite that number to be the name. Now, normally what happens is that kind of goes the other way. When you plug in a name like this, any name you want, maybe google.com, in the background, this goes out to what's called a DNS server. That server then takes that name, looks up in a table to find the physical address of the computer, that IP address, and then contacts that computer, and then they write back and forth. In the process of doing that, the DNS server is also getting an IP address from your computer or your router so that it knows how to send information back. And so there's this, like when you mail an envelope to somebody, it has a return address. There's a return address when these interactions go on. So I'm going to type here my IP address to see what's happening there. And there's lots of sites that will find your IP address, and Google found it for me. Google says that I'm at the address 140.211.36.254. Interesting thing about that is if I go into the office next door for a colleague of mine and he looked up his address, it would probably say the exact same thing. You may wonder, wait, I thought each computer needed its own IP address. And the answer is yes and no. So what happens here is my computer is connected through a cord to another computer that's a server here on campus. That server then gets us out to the regular internet. So both my neighbor in this building and me are going out through the same computer. So on the outside, it looks like we're both coming from this address right here. Now on the inside, I have a different address on my network, and that's going to happen at home with your router too. So to find that, I'm going to go to the Windows menu and type CMD, which stands for the command prompt. Hit enter, and that brings up this cute little box here. And here, I'm going to type ipconfig. So ipconfig, and I'm going to hit enter. What this is going to tell me is how I'm connected on my local network here. So I'm on a network called bluecc.local. And my computer has an address right here that's 10.10.101.27. So internally, if somebody were to look up my computer on the BMCC network, they would not see me as the 140.211.36.254. They would see me as 10.10.101.27. And maybe my neighbor is 10.10.101.28. So each computer on the local network has to have an address. So it's kind of like, you know, going to a specific address on a street, like 512 Northwest 8th Street, but then there's an apartment A and an apartment B and an apartment C and so on. So this would be like the street address here, and this would be the apartment number. That's one way to think about it. You can also get a little more information. So how does this computer network know how to look up where to find google.com or where to find BlueCC? So that's where the domain name server comes in. And every computer, when it connects to the internet, needs to get a couple of things. It needs to know the kind of the escape address to get out to the internet. It needs to have a local address for the computer, and it needs to know what DNS servers to contact to be able to connect to other websites. So if I type instead ipconfig/all, and those of you Mac users out there, instead of ipconfig, it would be ifconfig. I'm just going to make a little note of that here in my document. Blow this up a touch. So Windows users by CMD is the program you would open, and the command there would be ipconfig, or you might type ipconfig /all, and that all will give you a little more information. For you Mac users out there, what you would have to do is go to your apps, and then in apps you would go to utilities. From utilities, you would go find what's called the shell program. And in the shell, you would do something similar. You would use the command ifconfig. Or if you wanted more information, it would be ifconfig, and I'm pretty sure it's -A. I'll have to double check that. And that'll return your local IP address, what your internet router knows you as, versus when you go to someplace like Find My IP address, that'll give the external address of your router or the computer you're escaping to the internet through. All right, so I have a couple of addresses. I have this one. I'm going to put that in my notes here. Current external address is, oops, Control-Z, let's put that in as plain text, paste without format, current, and then current internal address is 10.10.101.27. And you may want to know how I remembered that. Well, I look this kind of thing up all the time for certain kinds of work I do in playing with computers. So I'm kind of used to what that address looks like internally. My guess is on your computer, on a home network. Home networks usually use a different scheme. It's probably something like 192.168.1.8 maybe. If I were on my laptop at home and I looked up what's my internal address, I would probably get a number that looks like this right here. And every day it's going to be different because they do what's called dynamic addressing on routers, which means they're kind of like addresses are first come, first served. So if my daughter gets home before me, she might get address number 8, and then I log into the internet after her, I might get address number 9. Maybe earlier, my other daughter was on IP address number 6, but she logged her computer off the internet, and so then it would free that number up for use again, and I might get 6 when I get home. So every day, every time you log in, you might have a slightly different address over here, but the base part of the address, this part over here, is usually going to be the same on a home network. Same thing here on the college network. I'm probably always going to have that part, and it's this one that'll be different each time I reboot my computer. So it's a very amazing scheme that people came up with to let these computers interact on the internet. All right, so let's do one more. Let's see. I like to cook, so I end up at the Food Network often. So, you know, if I go up here and just type foodnetwork.com, I get taken to their site. Looks kind of like that. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an IP lookup and use one of the tools here. How about whois? And then I give them an address like foodnetwork.com. And then they'll come back and say, hey, foodnetwork.com is using what address today? Let's see, listed here. Oh, there it is right at the top. So they're saying that's the current web address for that main server. And sometimes big companies have multiple addresses to serve because there's so many people logging in. They have multiple computers taking that information. So let's copy that, paste it in up here in the address bar, hit enter, see if it takes us back to Food Network. Ooh, took me to the cooking channel. So Food Network has a couple of sites that are related to each other. They've got foodnetwork.com. And they've got the cooking channel. Interesting. Let's look up the cooking channel. And sometimes the www matters, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to get rid of that there. Let's do a new search. Let's see. I'm going to do IP lookup. Quiz. Same address, or a different one. This one was an 82, that one was a 45. Yeah, notice it's slightly different. Let's look up this one in a browser, see where it takes us. That one took us to the cooking channel too. All right, let's do a little play here. What if we put a www in front of it? Sometimes that'll change the address you get taken to, not always. Oh, look at that, that's a slightly different one. Let's try that, sir. Ooh, did I paste it wrong? Or did I grab it wrong? Interesting. Didn't like that one. Control C. It's a complicated place. No, fascinating. All right, what if we throw an HTTP in front of that? // still doesn't like it. Weird. 2357/80/148. 2357/80/148. Fascinating. One more try. HTTPS://. Oh, okay. Some interesting stuff going on here. Proceed. Nope. All right. So sometimes servers block you from using their physical address and instead only allow interactions using the domain name. So again, it's a complicated place. There's a lot to it. If you want to know more about it, there's quite a bit of studying you have to do about how DNS works and how IP addresses are resolved and things like that. So let's move away from that for a minute. Let's see, I might as well use this one. Which one was this one for? Let's use the cooking channels. So another useful thing, Control-Shift-T will bring up pages that you closed. Here we go. So I'm going to use cooking channel TV. And then that IP address in my notes here, because that one worked. Paste equals IP address. And again, when you copy something on a website, the formatting usually comes with it. So what I do is a right click and I paste without formatting, so it matches the stuff around it. Okay, so there's some cool IP address stuff. Cyber attacks, let's take a look at that next. So there's cyber attacks going on all the time. So I just looked up a few things about that. And what you want to do is find an article, read the article. If you don't understand the article, find a different one. You want one that you can understand. But you also want to push yourself a little bit. So that's a good thing too. So just searching about cyber attacks, you'll find lots of interesting things. Doing that, I came across an FBI site where it's their investigation cyber page, and they have lots of interesting things about what they do here. So that's worth checking out. And then on here, you can check out their news or their most wanted. Maybe you'll find something interesting. So I was thinking, I remember reading a few weeks ago or a month ago about a guy in the Midwest who has had viruses he installed on computers. I think it was at a university. And they've been on there for like 15 years and no virus protection software caught it. And he was spying on people, grabbing their webcams and watching them and doing naughty things. So I went to the FBI site figuring his information would be here somewhere. And I eventually found that. So FBI had an article about this man right here, Philip Durachinsky. So here's the FBI article on him. And then I looked up his name, and on the internet, I found lots of other articles. So here's one about him right here. And so he was using old software. There's lots of bad software available on the internet that people want to try and be bad hackers. There are good hackers out there. Hackers not necessarily a bad thing. It's people who explore stuff is basically a hacker. So this is an interesting article from NPR, but there's a ton of other ones on there. But I thought this was a fascinating article right there. So look around, find some article about a recent cyber attack. You'll need to cite the article. And so you can always grab that address and plug it into that citation generator to help you generate the address if you need help with that. So I think that's about it for my summary of this assignment right here. You're going to look up each of these and have a citation as a footnote in your Google Doc. Your Google Doc should be well organized and good looking. So here I used indentation to help make mine more readable. And I also kept that bulleted, the numbered list, excuse me. Here. And then you'll write about the cyber attack. As far as the cyber attack goes, you'll have a couple of things in there. You're going to have your citation. That's probably a good idea to put that at the top. And then after that, you're going to have a summary in your own words. What was the article about? And then you should put another paragraph with your opinion of that article. So have fun, do good computing stuff. I'll catch you later.